Hi, Owens here, and today I'm joined by El Magnifico, Victor Altamirano, who is back in action Saturday night. Vic, great to sit down and chat. How are things
What's
for you?
up? I'm doing great. I'm very happy here. Our biggest concern was the elevation, but we're good. We went for a run to calibrate it. Feels amazing, and we're good to go. We're just now trying to make the weight and get ready for Saturday.
How do you function with elevation being from Mexico? Is that something that you particularly feel? Because I know obviously you live in Texas now, but do you how does elevation affect you?
Well, the elevations in Mexico, I think it's higher here, higher than the one here in Salt Lake City. And I've been there many times, so I know what it feels like to gasp for air in the thin air. But once I arrived here, I noticed that it's not that bad here. It's not as high up, so I was able to I feel great. The elevation, I think it takes about 72 hours. I think it's what I've heard to accommodate to the elevation. But so far, we were able to do so the first day we were here, so that was good.
Awesome. Let's talk about the fight. What are your opinions on your opponent, Daniel da Silva? What does he do well, and what do you think are areas that you think you can capitalize on?
Oh, he's got good jujitsu. He's good jujitsu transitions. So we just have to make sure we keep him on the outside. And if we do go into grappling engagement, we have to make sure that we're the ones that initiate it, so that if the grappling engagement, we're the ones that have the upper hand on the engagement, on the attack. Then we can just back up if need be, or stay there and proceed with the grappling engagement. But he's good. He's got really good jujitsu transitions. We just have to make sure that we shut him down early with position before it's too late and we don't have to fight any submissions.
The guy you're fighting is 0-2 in the UFC. He's got losses to Jeff Molina and to Francisco Figueiredo. How much can you take from that tape? I know he's been finished twice, but how much can you and your team take from his two fights in the UFC and implement it into your game plan?
Well, we took the fact that he's very comfortable with his jiu-jitsu, so we know that. We took that from watching Jeff Molina and seeing how his transitions were working with Jeff. We also took the consideration his striking. He gets hurt. He is when he gets hurt, he starts to back away. He likes to make sure that he controls the distance, and if not able to handle how to control distance well, you can get baited into something coming in or leaving the engagement. So we know that although he likes to control the distance, he's not really good at maintaining the control that he establishes when it comes to distance. So that's probably the biggest thing that we picked up from those fights.
Have you been impressed by him in the UFC? And I mean, I know you're fighting a guy who doesn't currently have a win in the organization, but have you been impressed
Yeah.
by his performance?
No, I haven't been impressed, but I do recognize that he has good transitions. He has good jiu-jitsu transitions. I'm not I'm not impressed, but at the same time, I'm not underestimating my opponent. He's in the UFC for a reason, and we're gonna have to make sure that we don't take, we don't take this too lightly. We have to make sure that we show what we are in the UFC as well.
Of course. You talk there about pressure, about how Laseda doesn't like when he gets hurt, he backs up and he doesn't really like pressure. How important do you think you applying the pressure in the correct way is going to be to getting your hand raised on Saturday night?
It's going to be very important, very important. And at the same time, I am a pressure fighter. I like to control the center. I like to make sure that I am the one. It's great.
So a little bit of a technical difficulty there, but Vic, you were talking about how important pressure is going to be in this matchup. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Oh yeah, pressure is important. I'm a pressure fighter. I like to make sure that I control the center. I like to make sure that I'm in, controlling, initiating, and have a great gauge of the distance and the timing that it requires to keep pressure. I do know that as a pressure fighter, you have to make sure you're always on the lookout for counters. So that's all we've been working a lot on: head movement, body movement, footwork, so that we can maintain that pressure and make sure that we're not in danger for counters.
Can we talk a little bit about your UFC debut a couple of months ago? Obviously, you didn't get the win. It was a split decision loss, but can you kind of walk me through your experiences making your professional debut in the UFC?
It was really cool. It was really cool to watch it, to watch everybody there, to watch the UFC, to see the UFC logo on the gloves. You know, the Contender Series was really cool experience. But you know, to wear the UFC gear to show.
So we were
Okay,
talking about your UFC debut, Vic. Can you walk me through how that felt for you, please?
it felt really good. My UFC debut felt really good. It felt really wonderful to finally be presented as a UFC fighter officially, you know, by Bruce. That was really cool to hear my name. You know, I think that's when you feel it's official, when Bruce says your name and introduces you, when you're stepping the octagon, when you have UFC on your gloves. You know, it was really cool. I was excited, and you know, I feel like I gave my all in that fight. It was pretty good. Um, the ending of the fight, the decision of the fight, and somewhat controversial. You know, I really didn't feel like I lost, but you know, we just move on. We can't carry that with us, so we just have to move on, get better, and we're here to do exactly that in Salt Lake City, just to put that behind us and move forward.
Obviously, I'm incredibly biased when it comes to a Victor Altamirano fight, so of course I thought you won. But nevertheless, it was a close fight. We can't deny that. Now, I guess
Yes.
when you look at your performance, what do you think went wrong? Where were the areas in that specific fight that you think can be improved upon?
Um, I was perhaps too hesitant to make sure that I just go ahead and made the fight. I feel like I was really enjoying the fight, and I wasn't trying to enjoy the finish. And I think that that is the level of the UFC. You know, everybody's here because they love to fight, but you have to stay here by enjoying finishing the fight. You know, I feel like I was too too occupied, really enjoying the moment, really enjoying being there with my opponent, trading punches, shouting takedowns, going for this. And I love it. I love those moments. But more importantly, I needed to learn how to finish the fight. You know, I need to learn how to finish the fight. I need to enjoy how to make sure that my opponent is no more. And this is what we focus on this for the camp on this fight. It's okay, we know we love to fight. That's what we're doing. But now we need to enjoy finishing the fight. And so we focus in on this a lot. It's like, look, we're going to fight. Let's make this short and sweet. Let's finish it. Let's enjoy the tap, snap, or nap.
Did any part of you maybe want to go the 15 minutes in your debut and kind of elongate that first UFC fight a little bit too much? Is that what you're kind of trying to say, and that you were enjoying it too much? You maybe never put your foot on the gas.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It was just, you know, I just love fighting. I just love fighting, and I want to do it for as long as possible. So as soon as the fight begins, like, all right, I want to be here the whole fight. I want it to last the whole time. I wanted to get the full experience. I want to feel all of my opponent's skills. I want to feel his grappling. I want to feel his striking, and I want to be in it, live it, fight through it, and defeat it. And I realized, you know what? Make them feel yours. Make them feel your skills. Make them feel your submissions. Make them feel your strikes. Make them feel your power. And if they can withstand it, then it will go the whole fight. And if they can't, well, then you win.
How do you improve your finishing ability, Vic? How have you worked to do that? Now, that might sound like a simple question because from the outside perspective, you practice more submissions and you try and put more power on your shots. But from maybe a martial arts perspective, how do you actually try to improve your finishing ability going from your debut to your second fight?
It is difficult emotionally because you have to practice with your friends, with your partners, with the people you care about.
Mm.
So you do so by disregarding your safety and your partner's safety at the time. You know, obviously you're not going to try to kill them, but you have to make sure that there are moments in which you say, look, I'm going to throw a kick really hard, and if they block it, they block, and if they don't, they may get dropped, and if they check it, I may hurt my foot. But I need to test that threshold. I need to push the needle to the red line. I need to make sure that I know whether I'm able to do this or not. So how am I going to find out where my threshold is if I don't push the threshold? So it's not difficult when it comes to, you know, doing it physically, but it is difficult when it comes to trying to accept that mentally and seeing the person in front of you, the person who's trying to make you better, is your friend, is your partner, and you're trying to finish each other. You're trying to, I mean, you literally are trying to hurt each other and put them out of commission. So emotionally, it's a little difficult to do that with the people you care about. But that is what we did. That is what we did. We constantly practiced. Like, look, I'm going to just disregard this, go straight for the finish, go straight for the submission, you know? And you're like, man, I don't want to hurt you. But then you got to remember, this is the business of hurt. This is the fight biz.
You mentioned there about, you said in the last answer, tap, snap, or nap, and you've just mentioned submission. And then you've told me that Lacerda has really good submission threats. So is the plan to go to the ground round and try and seek a submission? Is that the essential tactic going in?
The plan is to fire at will, shoot to kill. If it goes to the ground, we go and we shoot the submissions. We're just going for the kill. We're going for the kill, whether it happens with impact or whether it happens with a submission. Whatever opportunity we see first, we're going to take it.
Okay. I want to talk about the transition between your first two UFC fights, because the first fight was on a fight night card. This second fight now is on a UFC pay-per-view, UFC 278. I know we're only halfway through fight week, but how different have those experiences been for you?
Well, we're not in Vegas, so the accommodations are a little different. We don't have the PI. The PI is really convenient, very convenient. We don't have that here, so they do have representatives here who are very helpful. Shout out to the PI people, and they have our meals. They have everything the PI has. They just don't have the PI itself. They don't have the actual, institute where you can gut cut weight. You can go and check your weight and start your weight cut and what have you. So it is a little more different because we have to go outside. We don't have the apex, so we need to go train at another gym. We needed to find a place to go to outside of this. And, there's just more things that we have to coordinate so that we can facilitate the training going into the PI. But luckily, this is what your amateur career prepares you for. You don't have that in your amateur career. You don't have that outside of the UFC. So we've done this before. We just that's just the only difference. It's in fight night, you're in Vegas. The UFC has their headquarters there, so all the facilities are there for you to use. Fight night, you're outside. You don't really, the UFC card, you're outside of Vegas. You don't have these things. But if you've made it this far, you've done it before. You've been in hotels and you've been out of town and you find your own way. So it's just different than it was, but we've also done it before.
Some fighters have told me that they feel as though they've really made it in the UFC when they get on a UFC pay-per-view. Does it feel I know you said about the location is different, but does it feel any better or in any way more grander now fighting on a pay-per-view card? I know you're on the prelims, but a pay-per-view card nonetheless.
Yeah. No, it doesn't feel any different, and probably I won't feel it different until I'm actually there, until after the fight. That's probably when I'll feel the difference. It's been a long time since I fought in front of a crowd, since all the COVID stuff and whatever. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to, having that energy around the arena. So, maybe after the fight, I'll be able to answer that question. But as far as we go right now, the weight cut's still the same. We're still in the hotel. Everything feels the same right now. We're just focused on making sure that the fight goes. And we're so focused on that everything else that comes around, you don't really pay attention to it.
You mentioned there, obviously, you fought in crowds, in front of crowd throughout your career, notably throughout the LFA, and obviously on the amateur circuit and all of that. But do you have any idea, or can you anticipate what fighting in front of a UFC crowd, never mind a UFC crowd, a UFC pay-per-view crowd, is going to feel like?
Oh man, it's probably going to feel. It's probably going to feel like at the end of a piece when the last note is played, it's silent for a moment, and then all of a sudden the roar just comes. Just the rain falling all upon you, the rain of praise falling upon you. And whether that praise is for you or not, you're there and you're experiencing it. So, I would feel like you would imagine being outside in a thunderstorm with lots of rain, as if that was meant for you.
Wow, that's fantastic. You mentioned there about the last note being played. How is the cello playing getting on? Are you still able to keep up with that? Being a UFC star, now being in the biggest fight promotion in the world, is that still a hobby of yours?
Oh yeah, I still play it as much as I can. It's it's just going great. I'm going on 4 years of just practicing. I'm not super serious about it. I just take my time, do it for enjoyment. When I get time, I do it. Of course, I'm making progress, and it's always a reminder of how important practice is. How important practice is. You may not have all the time in the world to practice, but you just got to give a little bit. Just give a little bit, devote a little bit of your time to the things you like. Even if it's a little, it will make a difference. It will pay off. And that's what it reminds me. That's why I keep it in my life as a constant reminder of how the accumulation of hard work, whether it be in big amounts or small amounts, will equate to growth.
Obviously, you have goals within your fight career. Do you have any goals within your cello playing career? Is there something that you want to accomplish, and maybe a goal at the end of the rainbow type of thing?
Yeah. I'm not very super serious about it, but if I ever get a chance to devote more time for it, maybe after my fighting career, I would like to eventually, belong to an orchestra.
Wow.
Even if I'm not first chair, if you just have me in the back chair, last chair, just there, I would like to eventually one day maybe just play with a symphony, play with someone in a group. That's it. That's my biggest goal. I'm not gonna tell you I wanna be a soloist in Carnegie Hall.
There would be nothing cooler than you playing the cello with the UFC world title belt wrap around your waist. That
Oh,
would be that would
that
be
would
the
be cool.
coolest thing a fighter could ever do.
That would be really cool.
Vic, I know we're pressed for time, so I know obviously the goal is to focus. The focus is the win on Saturday night. I'm sure that's all you're preparing for. But
Yeah.
in August 2022 now. What are your essential goals for the next 12-month period? What do you want to accomplish by the end of August 2023?
Let's get more fights. Let's climb up that ladder. Let's get on the rankings. Let's make it to the top 10, to the top 5. Let's start fighting the top ones. Let's get closer to the belt, if not the belt itself. Those are my fight goals.
You seem in a way, you seem more fired up. Now that might be a function of fight week and a function of weight cut, but is am I speaking to a different Victor Altamirano than the guy I spoke to prior to his UFC debut? Have things changed for you?
Yeah, every time. I mean, every time. I've been telling you, I've been focusing on finishes. So I want to finish. I'm excited to do this. I'm excited to perform. I'm excited to go ahead and just shoot it all. Just intensity has been. So I just mentioned to you how important practice is. So I've been practicing going for the finish so much that in every aspect of my life, I'm practicing intensity. I'm practicing just going full throttle. I'm practicing excitement. I'm practicing all this time constantly, because the more you practice something, the better you get at it.
Mm.
So, since my debut, I've been practicing. Let's get to the point. Let's finish this. Let's do it the best we can. Let's give it all we got and make sure that it turns out the best, in every aspect. Sometimes my wife gets a little upset at me. It's like, this rice needs to be good. So I'm going to make the best rice in the world. I fuck it up and like, oh, I'm gonna do it again. And so we just made a batch. And I'm like, well, we're making another one until it turns better. And I got really good at making rice this fight camp.
Well, it all starts again on Saturday night when you're back in action making your second walk to the octagon. And Vic, it's truly a pleasure to always talk with you. It's always been a pleasure, and I'm so happy to see the success, see you now flourishing in the UFC, and cannot wait to see you back in action come Saturday night, my friend.
So it's a pleasure too. Thank you, Mike.
Before we finish, Vic, how can people find you on social media, sponsors, and I would also please remind you to shout out where people can find your newly released fight merch.
Oh yeah, so you can find my fight match in ESPN Plus, and if I think that some countries that you don't need to have an account, I think they just show them free. I think in Mexico it's at Fox. You can find me on Instagram at Vic_Altamirano, which is my last name. And like to give a big shout out to my team, Peak Performance Wataga, my sponsors, Cryo Nation. You know, my team is big. I'll give you a whole list. We'll stay here all day of all these wonderful people. But my corners, David, Adrian, and my coach Juan, we're here. We're here. We're ready to go, and we're excited. My family, my wife Emily, and my son Tlaloc. I love you, and we'll see you soon.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKickMMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.